the HFY celestial tier, hung in the void like a shard of frozen lightning, its crystalline hull refracting the distant starlight into fractured beams of blue-green luminescence. Commander Zapkal of the Zapirian Ascendancy watched the feed from the observation spire, his multifaceted eyes absorbing every detail of the system below. The third planet, Terra, as the primitives called it, rotated lazily beneath them, its blue oceans and swirling cloud covered deceptively serene. For decades, the Ascendancy had monitored this world. The humans were young, reckless, their history a tapestry of bloodshed and stubborn survival. Their wars had been petty, their technology crude, chemical explosives, primitive fission reactions, clumsy orbital attempts. To the Zapirians, they were little more than an interesting case study in how not to build a civilization. Quilex, the Ascendancy's foremost sinologist, adjusted the bioluminescent display before him, his chitinous fingers tracing the holographic readouts. Their energy signatures remain erratic, he murmured, the subsonic hum of his voice vibrating through the crystalline chamber. They still rely on combustion, on inefficient electrical grids. Their infrastructure is fragile. Zapkal flexed his segmented carapace, the bioluminescent veins along his arms pulsing with restrained energy. And yet, he mused, they persist. The humans had not collapsed as predicted. Their wars had not consumed them. Instead, they had clawed their way forward, their cities sprawling across the planet like a virus, their crude satellites multiplying in orbit. It was unsettling. A flicker of movement on the display caught his attention. A human vessel, one of their so-called warships, drifted into view. It was a blocky, inelegant thing, its hull a patchwork of welded metal and exposed cabling. Zapkal exhaled through his spiracles, a dismissive gesture. "Observe," Quilex said, magnifying the image. The human ship was not alone. Dozens of smaller craft darted around it, swarming like insects, their movements chaotic yet precise. They were not fleeing, they were maneuvering. Zapkal's mandibles twitched. Then the human ship fired. Not a beam of refined plasma, not a controlled singularity. Off projectile, a solid mass accelerated to obscene velocities, tearing through the void with terrifying simplicity. It struck a derelict satellite, obliterating it in a silent flash of debris. Quilex stiffened. That should not be possible. Zapkal said nothing. Because the humans had just done something the Ascendancy had deemed improbable. They had weaponized physics itself, and they had done it without a single drop of crystalline energy. A cold realization settled in Zapkal's thorax. The galaxy had underestimated them, and soon it would learn why that was a mistake. Sestion 20. The first anomaly. The void between stars had always been a silent witness to the rise and fall of empires. The Zapirian Ascendancy had charted its dominion across this darkness with the certainty of a species that had never known true opposition. Their ships, gleaming, geometric constructs of living crystal and pulsing blue-green energy, were testaments to their mastery over the organic and the arcane. But now, as High Commander Zapkal watched the human vessel through the holographic display, something primal stirred in his thorax. A sensation his kind had not felt in millennia. The human ship was an ugly thing by Zapirian standards. Angular, asymmetrical, its hull a patchwork of reinforced alloys and heat-scorched plating. No elegant bioluminescence pulsed through its veins, only the dull, utilitarian glow of fusion reactors and the occasional flare of maneuvering thrusters. Yet, it moved with a predatory grace, its swarm of smaller craft dancing around it like a pack of wolves circling prey. Quilex, the Ascendancy's foremost sinotech analyst, adjusted the crystalline display with a flick of his manipulators. The hologram zoomed in, revealing the scars of battle etched into the human vessel's hull. Their armor composition is irregular, he murmured, his voice a harmonic hum of disbelief. Layered ablative plating, reactive shielding, and what appears to be self-repairing nano mesh beneath the primary stratum. Zapkal's mandibles twitched. Self-repair was a hallmark of Zapirian bio-engineering, a gift of their living crystal technology. For humans to have replicated it through crude metallurgy was unsettling. Then the anomaly appeared. A distortion flickered at the edge of the sensor array, a shadow where there should have been none. Quilex's spiracles flared in alarm as the system struggled to categorize it. "Commander, their vessel is emitting an energy signature unlike anything in our archives. It's not plasma, not antimatter. It's the human ship, twisted, not in the elegant, fluid motion of a crystalline drive, but in a violent, mechanical lurch, its thrusters firing in staggered bursts. For a fraction of a second, the laws of inertia seemed to bend around it, its trajectory shifting impossibly fast. Zapkil's neural tendrils stiffened. That maneuver should have shattered their hull. But the humans had not broken. Instead, their weapons arrays cycled again. This time, they did not fire. They've unleashed. A storm of projectiles erupted from their launch bays, each one a blunt, unrefined mass of tungsten and fury. No guidance systems, no elegant energy signatures. Just raw, brutal kinetic force, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The first projectile struck a drifting asteroid. The rock did not explode, it disintegrated, reduced to vapor in an instant. Quilex's voice was barely a whisper. "They have turned off momentum into a weapon." Zapkil said nothing. Because in that moment, he understood. The humans had not mastered the universe. They had conquered it, and now, they were coming. The silence in the Vela's celestial tidus command nexus was absolute. Zapkil's neural tendrils pulsed with residual static, his mind still reeling from the human warship's impossible maneuver. The vessel had defied physics, bending inertia like a predator, twisting mid-leap, an act that should have shattered any known species' technology. Yet the humans had done it effortlessly. Quilex's bio-luminescent markings flickered in agitation as he analyzed the data streams. His crystalline fingers traced the holographic projections, the blue-green light casting eerie reflections across his chitinous face. Their structural integrity, it's not just reinforced, it's adaptive. Zapkil did not respond. His thoughts spiraled back, not to the battle unfolding before them, but to the archives. To the first reports of humanity centuries ago. The Zapirian Dominion had watched, as all advanced civilizations did, from the cold safety of the void. They had seen Earth's wars, primitive, bloody conflicts waged with chemical explosives and crude fission devices. They had dismissed humanity as just another young, reckless species, destined to burn itself out before reaching the stars. Because the Zapirians had not understood the truth. Humanity had not evolved on a gentle world. Earth was a crucible. Zapkil's mind conjured the old surveillance feeds, scenes of human history that had once seemed like mere barbarism. Now, they took on new meaning. The trenches of their world wars, where men drowned in mud and poison gas, yet still crawled forward. The atomic fire that scarred their cities, only for survivors to rebuild atop the ashes. The endless, grinding conflicts where they turned tools of peace into weapons. Agricultural drones repurposed as assassins, medical nanites rewritten to dissolve flesh. And then, the Exodus Wars. The humans had not merely left their cradle. They had fought their way off it. Quilex's voice pulled him back. Their armor. It's layered with something we've never seen. It learns. Zapkil's tendrils coiled tight, of course it did. Because humanity had survived by adaptation, by turning every defeat into a lesson, every scar into armor. The Dominion had assumed their crystalline technology, honed over millennia, was the pinnacle of evolution. But the humans had taken a different path. They had never stopped fighting. And now, their warships moved like living things, reacting, shifting, improvising. Their weapons were crude only in appearance. In reality, they were refined by an eternity of conflict, stripped down to brutal efficiency. A new alert flashed across the holographic display. The human vessel was altering course again. Not retreating. Charging. Zapkal felt something cold and unfamiliar coil in his core. Not of their weapons, but of the minds that had forged them. CCTIO 40, the wrong calculation. The resplendent claw shuddered as another volley of human railgun fire hammered its crystalline shielding. Zapkal's command spire pulsed with emergency alerts, the translucent walls flickering between teal and a sickly, unstable violet. The Dominion's finest warship, a masterpiece of bioluminescent engineering, was being pounded into retreat by what their intelligence had labeled a mid-tier human cruiser. Quillek's appendages trembled as he analyzed the data streams. They're kinetic weapons. They're not just brute force. They're as timed. His voice carried the hollow resonance of dawning horror. Every impact is calibrated to resonate with our shield harmonics. They're as learning our frequency. Zapkal's tendrils stiffened. The humans had no right to understand Dominion technology this quickly. Their ships were supposed to be primitive, their tactics crude. Yet here they were, dismantling the F-Claw's defenses like engineers reverse engineering a faulty machine. On the holographic display, the human vessel, designated TCS Vanguard, loomed closer. Its angular, armored hull bore the scars of 100 battles, each dent and carbon, scorched plate a testament to survival. Unlike the Dominion's sleek, organic curves, the Vanguard was all brutal edges, a slab of reinforced alloy and hatred. And it was fast. Zapkal's tactical display flared with warnings as the human ship executed a maneuver no Dominion vessel could replicate, a lateral burn at full thrust, skidding sideways like a predator circling wounded prey. The Pheasant Claw's point, defense systems, designed to intercept elegant plasma arcs and crystalline shard projectiles, struggled to track the human missiles. They moved erratically, jinking at the last second, their propulsion systems roaring with the crude, deafening fury of chemical explosions.
Evasive,
Zapkal commanded, but it was too late. A warhead detonated against the Claw's starboard flank. Not a clean, precise energy burst. This was a physical impact, a shaped charge driving molten metal through the crystalline hull. The ship groaned, its bioluminescent veins flickering as internal containment fields struggled to compensate. Quillek's voice was barely audible over the klaxons. They're not just attacking our ship. They're attacking our design philosophy. Zapkal understood then. The Dominion had perfected war as an art calculated, beautiful, efficient. But humanity, they had perfected war as butchery. And now, this Vanguard was closing for the kill. CCTIO 50. THIGNAL. The West Claw of Dominion shuddered like a wounded beast, its crystalline latticework groaning under stresses it was never meant to endure. Zapkal clung to his command throne. The bioluminescent veins beneath his talons pulsing erratically, a visual echo of his own racing heartbeat. Outside, the void was no longer silent. Human munitions roared through space, their crude propulsion systems belching fire and fury in defiance of the Dominion's elegant plasma drives. Each impact sent spiderweb fractures skittering across the Claw's translucent hull, the damage spreading like infection through living crystal. Quillek's talons danced across his console, his crest flaring in distress. Their weapons, they're not just penetrating. They're corrupting. Zapkal didn't need the diagnostics to confirm it. The human warheads carried more than explosives. They carried contamination. Scorched metal fragments lodged in the Claw's organic circuitry, disrupting the delicate electric flows that powered their systems. Where Dominion technology sang with harmonic precision, human weaponry screamed, a cacophony of brute force and spite. A proximity alert blared. The Vanguard was closing. Zapkal's secondary eyelids flickered shut for a heartbeat, an instinctive retreat from the sight. The human warship was an ugly, angular thing, its armor pitted and scarred from battles the Dominion couldn't fathom. It moved with none of the grace of a Dominion cruiser. Just relentless, mechanical hunger. A new signal pierced the chaos. Quillek stiffened. High Commander, we're being hailed. Zapkal's crest flattened. No Dominion vessel would break protocol to communicate mid-engagement. This was another human trick. On screen, the holographic display flickered, resolving into the face of a human female. Her skin was flushed with exertion, her dark eyes sharp with something Zapkal couldn't name, not fear, not rage, something worse, anticipation. "Zapkal of the Dominion," she said, her voice rough with the weight of command. "Colonel Samantha Kim, Terra's vanguard." Zapkal forced his crest to remain neutral. "You fight well for primitives." Kim's lips curled, not a smile, but the baring of teeth. "You don't fight at all. You perform." The words struck deeper than any railgun round. Behind her, Zapkal glimpsed the Vanguard's bridge, a cramped, utilitarian space alive with shouting crew and flickering screens. No crystalline harmony, no luminous artistry, just function. And then Kim did the unthinkable. She leaned closer. "You want to see how humans really wage war?" The transmission cut. A heartbeat later, the Vanguard's hull erupted with new signatures, dozens of them, small and fast, streaking toward the Wuzzclaw like a swarm of enraged hornets. "Boarding pods," Quilek's voice was a whisper. "They mean to take us alive." Zapkal's blood ran cold. The Dominion had studied human history. They knew what happened to those who let humans get close. "All batteries," he began. But it was too late. The first pod struck like a dagger to the heart. The first boarding pod struck the Wuzzclaw of Dominion, like a meteor, not with the elegant precision of Zapirian warfare, but with brutal, unrelenting force. The crystalline hull shrieked as the pod's reinforced prow carved through layers of luminescent plating, scattering shards of living alloy like shattered glass. Inside the pod, Sergeant Mitchell Foster exhaled through clenched teeth as the impact rattled his bones. His HUD flickered, oxygen levels stable, armor integrity holding. Neural link synced with the other 11 soldiers crammed into the steel coffin with him. The air smelled of sweat, gun oil, and the faint ozone tang of overclocked servos. Just like the drills. Except no drill had ever prepared him for the sight of an alien warship's innards. The pod's explosive bolts detonated, and Foster's world became a storm of motion. He surged forward, pulse rifle raised, boots crunching on fractured crystal. The corridor beyond was a nightmare of shifting geometry, walls pulsing with teal energy veins, hexagonal panels warping like living tissue. The air hummed with a sound like 1,000 whispering insects, the Zapirian ship's organic systems recoiling from the intrusion. Foster's squad fanned out without a word. They didn't need orders. They'd trained for this, not for this ship, not for this enemy, but for the one truth every human soldier learned in the dark between stars. Closed the distance. Make it ugly. On the bridge, Zapkal watched the holographic schematics of his ship bleed red. Human boarding parties were spreading like a virus, bypassing security protocols with terrifying efficiency. They didn't hack the crystalline systems. They've burned through them, searing pathways with plasma torches where Zapirian logic expected finesse. Quilek's frilled neck trembled as he analyzed the invaders' movements. "They're not targeting engineering or the bridge first." Zapkal's crest flared. "Then what?" A scream echoed through the comms. The feed from Deck 7 showed a Zapirian defense squad disintegrating under a hail of tungsten flechettes. The humans moved like predators, not in the elegant formations of Dominion warriors, but in a chaotic, overlapping dance of suppressive fire and flanking maneuvers. One soldier, taller than the others, armor scorched, leaped onto a crystalline barrier and kicked off, using the alien material's strange elasticity to propel himself behind the defenders. His vibro blade flashed. Quilek's voice was hollow. "They're hunting the crew." Foster's rifle barked, its recoil a comforting rhythm against his shoulder. The Zapirian warrior before him collapsed, its carapace, like armor split by 3 tightly grouped rounds. No dramatic last words, no ceremonial defiance. Just death, swift and efficient. His squad advanced, boots slick with alien blood, that shimmered faintly blue under the pulsating lights. Somewhere ahead, the ship's heart pulsed, a massive, glowing core of crystalline energy, its rhythmic hum the closest thing the gau's claw had to a heartbeat. Foster's halute tagged it. But primary objective. But Colonel Kim's words rang in his skull. They think war is about control. Show them it's about survival. He adjusted his grip on the rifle. The Zapirians had never fought something that refused to die. Today, they'd learn. The first time the Zapirian High Command had seen human war footage, they had laughed. It had been decades ago, in the crystalline war chambers of their homeworld, where the air hummed with the soft pulse of luminescent energy. The holographic display flickered, grainy, primitive recordings of human conflicts. Explosions bloomed in slow, dirty fireballs. Projectiles arced through the air in crude ballistic trajectories. Soldiers screamed as they died, their bodies torn apart by weapons that seemed almost quaint compared to the surgical precision of Zapirian plasma lances. Commander Zapkel had dismissed it with a flick of his crest spines. They fight like beasts, he had said, mandibles clicking in amusement. No discipline. No elegance. Colex, ever the scientist, had lingered on the footage. There was something in the way the humans moved. Not the chaotic flailing the others saw, but something deeper. A relentless, grinding persistence. Even as their cities burned, they dug trenches. Even as their ships broke apart, they fired until their guns melted. He had tried to explain it once, in the quiet of the archives, tracing the glowing sigils of his research. They do not fight to conquer, he had murmured. They fight to live. No one had listened. Now, as the claw shuddered under the weight of human boarding teams, Quellex remembered those words with bitter clarity. The humans were not supposed to be here. They were not supposed to breach the crystalline hull, their armored forms wreathed in the acrid smoke of their own explosives. They were not supposed to move like this, fluid, coordinated, their every motion honed by centuries of killing each other. And they were, certainly, not supposed to be winning. Foster's squad carved through the ship's defenders like a scalpel through flesh. The Zapirian warriors, bred for war, trained in the arts of crystalline combat, fell before human bullets and blades. Their elegant armor, designed to deflect energy weapons, shattered under kinetic impact. Their disciplined formations collapsed under the sheer, brutal efficiency of human fire and maneuver tactics. Quellex watched, his bioluminescent veins dimming with dread, as a human soldier, Huff just one, tore through 3 warriors in as many seconds. The human didn't pause, didn't gloat. Just reloaded and kept moving. This was not war as the Zapirians understood it. This was something older, something primal. Zapkel's voice crackled over the ship's comms, sharp with disbelief. Or are they doing this? Quellex had no answer. Only the creeping realization that the galaxy had made a terrible, terrible mistake. The humans had not been hiding their weakness. They had been hiding their teeth. Section 80. First Blood. The Indomitables boarding pods had not just breached the Zapirian flagship's hull, they had infected it. Quellex watched, his crystalline fingers trembling against the holographic display. As human soldiers moved through the F's celestial dominions, corridors like shadows given form. Their armor was matte black, absorbing the ship's ambient bioluminescence, rather than reflecting it, rendering them near invisible against the angular, geometric halls. The Zapirian warriors, trained to fight in open crystalline arenas where honor dictated face-to-face combat, were being hunted. One human, designated Sergeant Mitchell Foster by intercepted comms, had taken position in a ventilation shaft, his rifle's suppressor reducing each shot to a whisper. 3 Zapirian defenders dropped before the 4th even realized where the attack was coming from. The warrior spun, his energy lance humming to life, only for Foster to drop onto his back like a falling blade. A single knife thrust through the neural cluster at the base of the skull, and the warrior crumpled without a sound. Quilex's bioluminescent veins flickered erratically. This was not combat. This was execution. High above, the human warship Indomitable loomed like a jagged obsidian monolith, its railgun batteries cycling with methodical precision. Each shot punched through the dominions, crystalline shielding with contemptuous ease, the hypervelocity rounds leaving molten scars across the ship's elegant, geometric superstructure. The Zapirians had believed their shielding invincible, layered hexagons of living crystal that diffused energy weapons effortlessly. But humanity had not come with plasma lances or particle beams. They had come with kinetics. Colonel Samantha Kim's voice cut through the chaos, calm and precise. Breach teams converge on the command spire. Zapirian resistance is fracturing, exploit it. And fracturing it was. The Zapirian warriors, bred for centuries to dominate lesser species through sheer technological superiority, were unraveling. Their formations, designed to overlap energy shields in perfect harmony, shattered under the humans' refusal to fight fairly. Grenades rolled into their midst, not to kill, but to scatter, forcing them into kill zones where human snipers waited. Zapkil's mandibles clenched as he watched the holographic feed. His warriors were dying not in glorious battle, but in arras ambushes. They fight like vermin, he hissed. Quilex's voice was hollow. No, vermin flee these creatures. They stalk. Then the lights died. The Sex Dominion's luminous corridors plunged into darkness, the only illumination coming from the sporadic bursts of human muzzle flashes. The Zapirians, reliant on their luminescent vision, faltered, but the humans did not. Thermal scopes painted the warriors in ghostly green, their heat signatures bright against the cooling metal. Foster's voice crackled over the squad channel. Command spires ahead, they're rallying. Kim didn't hesitate. Burn them out. The humans advanced, not with the measured precision of warriors, but with the relentless inevitability of a wildfire. And the galaxy learned. Too late. What happened when you backed humanity into a corner? You did not get surrender, you got first blood. The Dominion's command spire was a cathedral of crystalline geometry, its hexagonal panels flickering with dying blue-green luminescence. Zapkil stood at its heart, his chitinous fingers curling around the pulsing control node. The air smelled of ionized ozone and something else, something organic and sharp. Blood, human blood, Zapirian blood, it didn't matter. The scent was the same in the dark. Quilex's voice was a whisper, his bioluminescent markings dim to near invisibility. There inside the tertiary bulkheads, Zapkil didn't answer. His mind raced through tactical doctrines, centuries of Zapirian war, codex, the unbroken lineage of conquest that had birthed an empire. None of it applied here. The humans fought like nothing in the archives. Just a motion, relentless, adaptive, vicious, a tremor shook the spire. The humans weren't breaching the doors, they were dissolving them. Quilex's ocular membranes dilated as the first tendrils of acrid smoke curled through the chamber. Phosphorus. No. Zapkil's mandibles twitched. Thermite. The humans didn't just want entry. They wanted the Zapirians to watch as their defenses turned to slag. Outside, Sergeant Mitchell Foster adjusted his grip on the breaching charge, the canister's surface already blistering with heat. The Zapirian alloy resisted plasma, it resisted lasers, but humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of burning through anything. Colonel Kim's voice was calm in his earpiece. 30 seconds, Foster exhaled. The thermal overlay in his visor painted the spire's interior in jagged red silhouettes. Zapirians shifting, their luminescence flaring in distress. They were afraid. Good, the charge detonated. The explosion wasn't the deafening roar of human munitions. It was a hiss. A white, hot scream as the thermite ate through the door like paper. The breach team moved in before the molten metal had even cooled. Zapkil's warriors raised their pulse, lances, their crystalline barrels humming with charged energy. The first human through the door didn't fire. He threw something. Quilex had just enough time to register the object. a small, spherical device, before it clicked. The flashbang detonated with a concussive F crack, flooding the chamber with light calibrated to overload Zapirian optics. Their vision was sharper than humans, more sensitive. And now it was their weakness. Zapkil staggered, his neural receptors screaming as his ocular membranes seared shut in self-defense. He heard the humans moving, not the measured steps of warriors, but the stampede of predators closing in. Foster's boot crushed a fallen pulse, lance as he advanced. His rifle barked once, twice, 3 times, each shot precise. Each shot final. Quellex writhed on the floor, his bioluminescence flickering erratically. Had studied human history, their wars, their atrocities, had thought he understood. Because humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their refusal to stop. Zapkil lunged blindly, his claws slashing air, and met the cold, unyielding barrel of Colonel Kim's sidearm pressed against his thorax. Her voice was quiet, yield. Zapkil hissed, "You've dared demand surrender. You who fight like us scavengers." Kim's finger tightened on the trigger. "No, we fight to win." And in that moment, Zapkil finally understood. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, but Terra's children had written their own codex of war, and its first law was simple: survive. A CCTIO 100D. The trap springs. Zapkil's crystalline carapace vibrated with suppressed fury, the bioluminescent veins beneath his plating pulsing erratically. The human weapon pressed against his thorax hummed with lethal promise, its barrel radiating a heat that seared even through his natural armor. Around him, the command center lay in ruins, shattered consoles spitting arcs of blue, green energy, the air thick with the acrid tang of ionized plasma and something darker: blood. Human blood. He had miscalculated. The thought burned worse than the wounds scoring his limbs. The Zapirian Dominion had studied humanity for cycles, watched their fractured nations, their petty conflicts, their reliance on crude kinetics and uncontrolled fission. They had been deemed as manageable, a species to be harvested, not feared. Colonel Kim's eyes were iron, dark in the flickering emergency lights. No fear, no hesitation, just the cold calculus of a predator who had already won. Behind her, Sergeant Foster moved like a specter, his rifle sweeping the room with mechanical precision. The other humans, just 5 of them, had done this. Reduced an entire battalion of Zapirian elite to twitching husks littering the deck. Quellex groaned from where he lay pinned beneath a collapsed console, his mandibles clicking weakly. Zapkil, their armor. His voice was a broken warble, the bioluminescence in his throat guttering like a dying star. It's adaptive. Zapkil's secondary eyes flicked to the human soldiers. Now that he looked, truly looked, he saw it. The way their blackened plating shimmered faintly at the edges, the way it had absorbed the first volleys of pulse. Fire before hardening into something impervious. Not just armor, reactive shielding, mimicking Zapirian frequencies, learning, evolving mid-combat. This whole engagement, the feigned retreat, the false vulnerability, had been of trap. Kim's lips curled, not in triumph, but in something far colder. You thought we'd fight fair. Her thumb caressed the weapon's safety. Wits invented unfair. Outside the shattered viewports, the void erupted. Zapkil's cranial spines flared in alarm as the human fleet, of cloaked, how had they've cloaked, materialized from the dark. Not the ramshackle vessels they'd observed from afar, but sleek, angular monstrosities bristling with weapons that pulsed a deep, ominous crimson. Their engines didn't glow, they devoured light. And at their center, this titan of soul. A dreadnought, Noah, Reaper. Its hull was scarred from battles the Dominion had never recorded, its flanks lined with rows of launch bays. Not for missiles, for boarding pods. Thousands of them. Quellex made a sound like a dying reactor. They let us think we were hunting them. Zapkil's claws flexed, his mind racing. This wasn't just a battle. It was messagey. Humanity had never been the prey. They were the apex. and the galaxy had just stepped into their killing ground. The void between stars was not silent. Zapkil had always known this. The Dominion's finest commanders were trained to listen to the hum of crystalline drives, the whisper of bioluminescent relays, the pulse of their own fleet's energy signatures. But now, as the Titan of Soul loomed like a specter against the black, he heard something else. A hunger. The human dreadnought's engines didn't just burn. They drank the dark, swallowing light and radiation with a predatory efficiency that made his ventral plates tighten. Its hull was a patchwork of scars, battle damage, yes, but also something worse. Deliberate modifications, grafts of armor that shimmered like obsidian, cannons that pulsed with a deep, arterial crimson. This was not a ship designed by committee or protocol. It was a beast forged in war, honed by desperation, and unleashed with malice. Quelec's trembling fingers danced across his console, the bioluminescent displays flickering as they struggled to parse the data. Their energy signatures. They don't match anything in the archives. It's like his voice hitched, borrowing from the void itself. Zapkil's spines flattened. He had seen human ships before, clumsy, jury-rigged things, cobbled together from salvaged tech and sheer stubbornness. But this was something else. A memory surfaced, unbidden. The first reports from the observation drones had been dismissive. Primitive, the analysts had called them. Emotional, unpredictable. Zapkil had watched the footage himself. Human wars fought in mud and blood. Their weapons crude, their tactics brutal. They had no energy shields, no plasma lances, no understanding of the elegant geometries of war. Just grit and rage, and an almost suicidal refusal to yield. Then came the Battle of Cerberus V. The Dominion had expected surrender. Instead, the humans had scuttled their own orbital platforms, turning them into makeshift bombs. They had lured Zapirian destroyers into asteroid fields, then detonated the rocks with timed charges, shredding hulls with shrapnel. They had poisoned their own atmosphere rather than let it be taken. And when the last human stronghold fell, they had transmitted a single message before detonating their reactors. Welcome to hell. Now, staring at the Titan of Soul, Zapkil understood. The humans had thus never been primitive. They had been Narzen waiting. The Dominion had studied their history, their wars, their fractured nations. But they had missed this pattern. Every conflict, every atrocity, every desperate gamble had been a lesson. A refinement, and now here in the dark, humanity was grading them. Quelec's voice was hollow. They're boarding pods, they're not just for infiltration. Zapkil's claws flexed. He already knew the pods weren't launching. They were as opening, and inside something moved. Sistio 112C, The Skeeter IG. The crystalline observation deck of the Dominion's will flickered with emergency lighting, casting jagged blue, green reflections across Zapkil's carapace. The Titan of Soul loomed in the viewport, its blackened hull scarred but unbroken, its weapon ports glowing like the eyes of a predator in the dark. The boarding pods weren't just opening, they were birthing. From their ruptured shells spilled human war machines, but not the crude exoskeletons or lumbering drones the Zapirian intelligence reports had described. These were living weapons, sleek and silent, their armored forms etched with the scars of 100 battles. Their movements were too fluid, too alive, because they were. Quelec's mandibles trembled as the scanner feeds flooded the command nexus. They've integrated their soldiers into the machines, he whispered. Not just cybernetics. Symbiosis. Zapkil's secondary heart pulsed faster. He had seen human warriors before, their bodies broken and rebuilt, but this was something else. These were not just augmented soldiers. They were evolution. The first of them landed on the Dominions, will with a sound like a knife sinking into flesh. Its armor was matte black, absorbing the ship's ambient light rather than reflecting it, making it a void against the crystalline hull. Its visor glowed a dull, hateful red, And when it moved, it did so with the precision of something that had been as designed to kill. Then it looked at them, not through the cameras, not through the sensors, directly, as if it could see them through the layers of reinforced crystal and shielding. Quillex's claws skittered across the console, pulling up tactical overlays. They're jamming our comms. Not with noise, with face silences. Our distress signals aren't even leaving the hull. Zapkil understood then. This wasn't a boarding action. It was a hunt. The humans had turned their own ship into a trap, and now the Zapirian fleet was scattering, their formations breaking as the Titan of Sol's railguns carved through their escorts. The void was alive with the detonations of dying ships, their crystalline cores flaring blue, green before winking out forever. And still, the black armored figures advanced. Zapkil had fought in 100 battles across a dozen systems. He had faced the fanatics of the Cathari hives, the cold logic of the mechanist synth fleets, even the ravenous swarm of the outer reaches. This was different. The humans weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to erase them. Quillex's voice was barely audible over the shuddering impacts against the hull. Their armor, it's not just resistant to our weapons. It's learning from them, adapting. Zapkil's claws dug into the command console, the living crystal cracking under the pressure. The Dominion had come to conquer. The humans had come to end them. And as the first black silhouette stepped through the ruined doors of the command nexus, its weapon humming with a sound like a starving beast, Zapkil realized they were going to let them. The command nexus flickered with dying light, the crystalline walls fractured and oozing blue, green ichor from ruptured energy conduits. Zapkil's secondary heart stuttered as the armored figure stepped forward, its visor reflecting the carnage in fractured shards of black and crimson. This was not the crude, desperate resistance the Dominion's archives had promised. This was something forged. The human's weapon, a monstrous hybrid of plasma and kinetics, did not waver as it swept the room. Behind it, more silhouettes emerged, their movements synchronized, their armor drinking in the ambient energy of the dying ship like a predator tasting blood. Quillex's trembling claws hovered over the emergency broadcast array. A last pulse of data, a final warning to the Dominion. But what could he say? That the humans had not just matched their technology, they had consumed it. That their soldiers moved like a single organism, their tactics evolving faster than the Zapirian neural nets could simulate. The lead human tilted its helmet, studying them. No words, no demands, just an assessment, a voice, raw and resonant, cutting through the static of the failing comms. This is Colonel Samantha Kim of the Terran Defense Legion. The words were not transmitted. They were imposed, flooding the nexus through every surviving system, bypassing encryptions, seeping into the very crystal lattice of the ship's core. You thought we were prey. Zapkil's spines flattened. The voice was not angry, it was certain. The broadcast unfolded like a blade being drawn, images of human wars, of cities burning and rising again, of soldiers standing atop mountains of wreckage. Not in triumph, in warning. We do not conquer, we survive. Quillex's claws spasmed. The data streams scrolling beside him were incomprehensible. Human ships, yes, but also something deeper. Their history, their wars, not just against aliens, against themselves. Centuries of carnage, of refining war into an art so brutal, it looped back into elegance. The armored figure finally spoke, its voice filtered through the helmet, colder than the void. You brought extinction to our doorstep. We learned the steps. The broadcast ended. The weapons charged and Zapkil understood, too late, the fatal error of the Dominion. They had assumed humanity's greatest strength was their adaptability. It was their memory. They had not forgotten a single wound. And now, neither would the galaxy. Section 429. Zorth's choice. The silence in the eclipsed dawn's command spire was absolute. Zapkil stood motionless, his chitinous fingers hovering over the crystalline interface, its glow casting jagged blue shadows across his face. The holographic feed had dissolved into static, but the words still echoed in his mind, like the aftershocks of a dying star. We learned the steps. A whisper of movement beside him. Quilex, his bioluminescent veins flickering erratically, the only outward sign of distress his species allowed. The scientist's mandibles twitched as he parsed the final data streams from the human transmission. Numbers, schematics. History. Zapkal didn't need to see the files to know what they contained. The Dominion's intelligence had been thorough, but it had missed the truth beneath the statistics. They had recorded human wars as mere conflicts, primitive, chaotic skirmishes of a young species. They had not understood every battle, every massacre, every scorched city had been a EV lesson. And humanity had taken notes. The tactical display before him pulsed with hostile signatures. Human ships, sleek, angular, their hulls scarred and patched in ways no Dominion vessel would tolerate. They moved with a predator's precision, flanking the Avres Dawn not with the clinical efficiency of Zapirian formations, but with something far more unsettling: familiarity. They had done this before. Not to aliens, to each other. Of a chime from the console, Sergeant Foster's bio, signs, still stable despite the nanite swarm chewing through his armor. The human had laughed when the containment field sealed around him. A laughed. As if death were an old friend he'd been expecting. Zapkal's secondary heart spasmed. He had seen the same look in Colonel Kim's eyes when she activated the broadcast. Not hatred, not even anger. A recognition. The Dominion had come to teach humanity its place. But humanity had already written the curriculum. Quilex finally spoke, his voice stripped of its usual arrogance. Details in Dawn's core is destabilizing. The human boarding party, their weapons are EV targeting the energy conduits. Not to disable, to overload. Zapkal didn't respond. His gaze drifted to the viewport, where the human fleet hung like a constellation of knives. Their ships were outnumbered, outgunned. The Dawn's shields flickered as another volley struck, railgun slugs, their impact points, exactly where the shield harmonics wavered. Not luck, not guesswork. A practice. A memory surfaced, unbidden. The first time he'd seen a human warship up close. Ugly thing, its hull welded together from salvaged wreckage, its engines coughing plasma like a dying beast. Had dismissed it as a relic, now he understood. That ship hadn't been broken. It had been tested. A Quilex claws scraped against the console. Orders, High Commander. Zapkal closed his eyes. The Dominion had given him a choice of subjugation or annihilation. Humanity had offered a third option. He reached for the comm array and made his decision. The command deck of the Dawn of Dominion hummed with the dissonant whine of failing systems. Crystalline panels flickered, their bioluminescent veins dimming as overload warnings pulsed through the ship's organic circuitry. Zapkal stood motionless, his carapace rigid, the weight of centuries of Zapirian supremacy pressing down on him like a dying star. Outside, the human fleet moved, not in the ordered formations of Dominion doctrine, not in the elegant spirals of crystalline warships. They advanced like predators, erratic, relentless, their thrusters flaring in bursts of calculated chaos. Their ships were scarred, their hulls pocked with the remnants of battles fought long before the Dominion had deemed them worthy of notice. Ugly things, by Zapirian standards, no flowing curves, no harmonious geometry. Just angular brutality, layered armor, and weapons that spoke of a species that had clawed its way to the stars through blood and fire. Quilex's mandibles twitched, his voice a strained whisper. They're not just targeting our weapons. They're mapping our shields. Learning them. Zapkal didn't need the confirmation. He could see it in the patterns. Every shot the humans fired was precise, surgical. Not random barrages, not wasteful volleys. Each impact was a lesson, each detonation a question. How much can you take? And the answer was written in the Dawn's shuddering hull. A proximity alert shrieked. Zapkal's secondary eyes flicked to the tactical display, just as a human vessel, designation to F's Vindicator, slipped past the Dominion flank. Its railguns cycled, the magnetic coils glowing white, hot before unleashing a salvo directly into the S-Dawn's primary energy conduit. The ship screamed, a sound like fracturing crystal, as the conduit detonated in a cascade of blue-green fire. Quellex staggered, his claws digging into the console for balance. "They knew," he hissed. "They knew exactly where to hit us." Zapkal exhaled, slow and deliberate. Of course they knew. The Dominion had studied humanity from afar, dismissed them as reckless, emotional, or primitive. They had seen the wars, the destruction, the way humans tore at each other like beasts. They had assumed that was weakness. They had been wrong. Every battle humanity had ever fought, against itself, against the void, against extinction, had been a whetstone. And now, against the Dominion, the blade was finally being drawn. The comm array crackled to life, a human voice, calm, measured. "Dominion vessel, this is Colonel Samantha Kim of the Terran Free Navy. You have 1 minute to stand down." Zapkal's claws flexed. He had been given orders. The Dominion did not negotiate. The Dominion did not surrender. But the Dominion had also never faced an enemy like this. He looked at Quellex. The scientist's frills were flattened in defeat. His luminous eyes dim, with something Zapkal had never seen in a Zapirian before. Not of death, of understanding. The humans had not come to conquer. They had not come to beg, they had come to prove. And they had. Zapkal reached for the comm. His voice, when it came, was quieter than he expected. "Colonel Kim. This is High Commander Zapkal of the Dominion Armada." Sarit's a pause. The dawn trembled as another volley struck home. "If we yield." Silence. Then, from the human fleet, a single pulse of light, an acknowledgement. Not triumph, not gloating, just acceptance. The Dominion had thought humanity weak. Humanity had shown them the truth. They were not weak. They were patient. And patience, in the end, was the deadliest weapon of all.